All they want to do is talk Kates. Crosstalk, crosstalk. All they want to do is talk Kates.
Welcome to CROSSTALK.
We're here. It's CROSSTALK.
I decided to do this one like a NPR show.
Oh, yeah. Hello. Welcome to CROSSTALK, the show where we crosstalk you.
When I was driving today, I heard an NPR show. I can't remember what it was.
What time of day was it?
3.
Fresh air.
Fresh air, yes. And I was like, the person they found to do this report could not be more boring. It's like they seek out boring, dull people. You ever watch Baskets?
Oh, yeah.
You know
yeah.
the actress in Baskets that says everything's so monotone? It was like her. And you would think that if you worked in like a vocal medium, like an audio medium,
Right.
you would find people who could keep you like
A little bit more
a
interesting.
tiny bit interested,
Yeah.
had some vocal inflection. I guess since they're reporting, maybe they don't want people who are like, I feel excited.
They just want the monotone. I think that's going away. I think they want like more personality.
Mhm.
That show's an institution, so
Yeah.
they're just like, we know what to do.
Okay.
Here we go. We got personality though.
Yeah. And we're talking about the news this week, Crosstalk.
Crosstalk. Where does the theme music play in this show? Remind me. Does it play before we talk or after we talk?
It plays before we talk, and then we're going to start talking seconds into it. And then we'll fade it out behind us.
Okay, good. Yeah. So that's what That's what's happening right now.
Mhm. Yeah, this has already happened.
Okay. Perfect.
It's not that long. Do you have your bearings?
Yeah, now I know.
Are
Now-
you ready to get into
I'm aurally centered.
the most amped up issue of crossover yet, the finale to the
1 through 6.
initial arc of 1 through 6? This
Yeah.
is issue 6.
At the back of this book, they promoted that you can get the trade of 1 through 6.
Good for you
yeah,
if you want it all
I guess.
collected.
Yeah. Oftentimes in image books, I like to buy the trade and give them to people that don't read comics.
Because they
I'm
won't
like,
mess up your comics.
Yeah, and I'm like, just like check this out. But crossover is not for people that don't read comics.
No, you're right.
So it's that you can't really do that with it.
We don't have Greg with us this week.
We do not.
And
yeah.
I was going to make a joke when he eventually pointed out that this book was like a love letter to comics because he's done that every episode of Crosstalk.
That's like his version of like New York's a character.
Yeah, right. It really is a love letter
It's
to
a
comic
love letter
books.
to comics. This is my thing that I do. I talk about the hyped books
Yes.
of like the thing, and 6 was the big one. I called that Spawn was going to be in this.
Yep.
He is not. Let's get that out front.
Every page turn, I was like, where's Spawn's going to be on the next page? Are you disappointed?
No, I would say a little. I don't want to say underwhelmed because there was a lot of like cool surprises.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get this out of the way. Okay,
I was overwhelmed.
were you?
Is that what we're getting out of the way?
I want to get the out of the way of like, I think if you came here and you're listening to this episode, you're like, what did you guys think of the crossovers? That's
Yeah.
what I would want to know. Like,
Right.
there's crossovers. It happened. What do you think about them? So do you have a favorite? So there 6 delivered. There was a shit ton of crossovers.
Yes.
Absolutely
Right.
delivered. Good job, Donnie Cates.
Right.
My standard was I wanted something from the big 2. I wanted there just to be
Yeah.
that blurring of the lines. That's what I really wanted to see.
That would have been nuts.
And we did not get
No,
that.
we didn't.
So that left me a little bit wanting, but then I think fully delivered on all other fronts.
Right. I think if there hadn't been a variant cover released earlier that had Witchblade and Savage Dragon on the cover, I would have been a little more blown away by those 2 popping up just because they are huge
Yeah,
image properties.
that's a good point. So yeah, Savage Dragon, Witchblade. I would say that the biggest. Okay, what do you think the biggest crossover reveal was for you, or the biggest moment for you?
Hit Girl.
Hit Girl was huge. Yeah.
She was part of the story more than just like background fodder.
Right.
She like interacted with the other characters. That's someone massively famous who has a movie.
And Hit Girl, like she furthered the plot line, like the paybacks were doing.
Right, exactly.
I think that for me, just because I think that I'm most into this book in a way that I'm like, how is it changing the medium
Mm-hmm.
more than? But it's also an amazing story.
Yeah.
When Colonel Weird from Black Hammer came in and they did the whole Marvel Comics thing where they're like, "You're Colonel Weird from Black Hammer."
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, "Oh my God, they got a Dark Horse property
Right.
to be in here." Like somehow they exchanged that.
He was such a good character to be like this ominous interloper. that
Yeah.
tells her, you better start moving. If you haven't read Black Hammer, he's this like weird omnipresent observer who doesn't exist in like one time. He's like all over the place always.
Right.
And he's like, you better start moving out of the way. And then some shit collapses and kills her friend.
Right.
Right. So I love that he still embodies the essence of his importance in Dark Horse Comics in this weird Image comic he's interloping in.
Right.
That was like such a cool nod, I guess. And the idea that there's other ethereal beings in comic books, it really gets my mind reeling about who else could be pulling the strings.
At times,
Yep.
this book felt like an IDW crossover book where it's
Yeah.
like all the characters that we own, we're going to put into. And if you're unfamiliar with IDW doing that, they'll throw the G.I. Joes, Transformers, My Little Pony, like all of that into like mix 'em ups, Ghostbusters.
Yep.
And
They will cross over literally anything.
They don't give a shit.
No.
If they own it, they'll cross it over. And so there's a double panel. Greg has committed to outlining the panel and telling you who every character was,
Right.
I think. So check our website for that.
Mm-hmm.
It was nuts. It's definitely a 2-panel fold. It's probably the best part of the comic in some ways.
It was a little, this was the first time they stepped into the dome. And then it was like, flip the page. Wow.
Yes.
All this stuff.
And it's eye candy. You just have to look at it. And like, I was like testing myself. Like,
Same.
Yeah. Like, who can I identify quickly? You know?
It's the longest I've spent staring at an individual spread, like maybe ever in a comic book.
Oh, yeah. Because it has a Where's Waldo nature to it.
Sure, yeah.
Which I didn't even realize this until you pointed out to me, but the turtles are shadowed in the background.
Yep.
Enough that like...
all 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles obviously holding each of their own respective weapons.
Yeah. That
it's
they
them.
probably didn't have to go maybe talk to, I don't know who owns...
Kevin Eastman.
Yeah.
Or IDW.
IDW, Hasbro, I don't know who owns the...
They're silhouetted.
Yeah.
So you could probably just get away with that. You don't see their faces.
Right, yeah.
They're just round ninjas.
They're kind of just like floating in the background. So yeah, it definitely delivers, but I think Savage Dragon is like the biggest character.
Yep.
Chew is in there, which was really cool for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could not believe Chew made it into this like epic battle scene. It's like, here's a guy who can like taste dead people.
Yeah. Who was the biggest one for you in the page?
I think Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Just like all the Walking Dead stuff.
Right. Luther Strode. Is that his name?
Yeah.
He looks badass in
Yes,
it. Yeah.
right.
So, and there's a ton, I think there's 6 different Rob Liefeld entities.
Donnie Cates definitely has a huge love for these like 90s, early 90s comics.
Blood Strike type of thing. Like,
totally.
Yeah, exactly. Because he did an homage. Essentially, the throwaway comic is an homage to that. Now, I wonder, did any of those characters make it into that scene? But by the way, we're referencing that Donnie Cates claimed to have found a comic that was like a kind of a red herring of a comic book. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
No.
Where it's like the second comic book that came out in this series that's not crossover, that's like, it's just a 90s comic. We covered it on the feed.
Yes.
Is that what it's called? Like Blood something?
Some Solid Blood is what it's called.
Okay, yeah, Solid Blood, yeah. I was wondering if any of those Solid Blood characters made it into the dome.
You know what? I don't think they did.
Okay.
Was there ever anything referential of crossover in Solid Blood? I don't think there was.
Not yet.
I guess at the time when that came out, I expected a major comeuppance of some sort, or for this to be like a bigger thing. At the end, you know how like Donnie Cates promotes all his like advocates podcasts and stuff at the end? At the end of Solid Blood, Kirkman kind of has like a spoof on that for himself. Like his own like
Kirkman world?
Yeah, like
which
Kirkman
is just
thing.
Skybound.
But I don't know. That's the only thing that seemed like a nod to it.
Okay. And there is an Invincible shirt in the end of this. So maybe that's the Invincible inclusion. So, okay, we didn't talk about any of the story. We just talked about the crossovers, which is fun. The last comic ended on a cliffhanger, essentially the kid almost being shot by the kryptonite bullet.
Right.
Very quickly dispels with that. Not gonna happen. Kid makes it in fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like they return the kid home. That's no longer the plot. Like arc finished. Got kid home.
Yeah. We've also had a reliable narrator up to this point, and all of a sudden he's like, "Wait, that's not supposed to happen."
Yeah.
Like something isn't unfolding right here. And he's like, oh shit, this is getting away from me. Hang on, what's happening? And then his narration slowly fades out. It like, starts to get more and more opaque and you lose it. So I don't know if there's more to be read into there or what, but I found that super interesting. So far anything that he's told us is like for sure going to happen.
Right.
Like might not happen anymore.
Because he said like they're going to fall in love
Right.
with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that may not be a thing anymore.
Yeah, right. We've changed the course of where the story was going to go.
Right. We had to do a little bit of mapping of like where they were in the world.
Yep.
Because the outer edge of the dome is like kind of Armageddon fight landscape.
Yeah.
So they're get kind of caught in there. They get into the dome. In the dome is also a place where you can go back to comic book world.
Yes, I think another portal within the dome.
Right. Okay. And so if you read it, you may have to kind of like trace your steps back and
Yeah.
forth a little bit. It's a little bit confusing, but it's also kind of straightforward in
Mhm.
a beautiful Donny Cates way. The sad part is the comic book shop owner does not make it out.
Yeah,
He dies.
gets crushed by a falling building.
Yes. And so, and then the big thing that happens, I guess, if we should just jump to it.
Yeah, I think
right,
so.
is that we should learn their characters, but Ellie is is the character name that we know the most. Ellie and seemingly potential boyfriend, get out, and you find out that all along Ellie was a comic book character, and that is why she cosplays.
Yes.
She takes off her mask, she takes off her paint, and she reveals that she was etched at like a comic book character. She has the dots,
Yep.
which is why she was going to go into the portal with the kid.
Oh yeah, that's right. And then got knocked out.
And then she got knocked out. Yes.
So when she said her parents were in the dome, she wasn't lying.
They were in the dome in the portal.
Right, yeah.
And so she's about to go into the portal, and her friends are like, what the hell are you doing? No, don't do that. They think she's just a comic book obsessed fan.
Right.
And then she gets knocked out. And you find out essentially like, whoa, she was trying to return home
Mm-hmm.
and now is not able to.
Yep.
So this ends the arc. There's going to be an in-between comic with Chip Zdarsky. Is that what it is? Or is Chip writing a full-on arc?
I think I know he's writing at least 2 issues, I think.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it's an arc.
I thought it might be one of those in-betweeners
Yeah.
before they start the new arc.
Right.
That Marvel often does.
Yeah, like a single fun standalone.
Yeah.
It's like, let's take a break and
Yeah.
do something fun. Part of me wonders with the narration trailing off, is that part of Donny Cates saying, okay, other creators have this now?
Yeah.
Like, I'm acknowledging myself as the narrator and talking through where I think the story's going to go.
Right.
But I get forced out when the plan changes, and now Chip Zdarsky's taking over, and maybe we'll have him pop in as a narrator
Right.
and acknowledge himself. I mean, he's already acknowledged himself on the cover. I don't know if he had any input on it, but he's on a missing poster on the cover of the next book.
And they've referenced his name in the comic
Yes.
before.
In like a news report.
Yeah. I do think that Donny Cates treats this comic book, I'm sure he's making money on it, but it's like more than making money. It's like more about an endeavor.
Yeah.
So
Passion project.
Yeah, so I think he would have no problem with letting other people
Mhm.
write on it, make some cash on it if they needed to.
Totally.
For a minute.
I love the idea of all these people like finding each other's emails and getting hold of each other, and who knows, I'm sure they all go to conventions and like say hi to each other and are familiar with each other's work, but like how well does Donny Cates really know Mark Waid and Kieran Gillen and all these other people? But they've got to like talk a little bit about the favorite of using your character and stuff like that. And I love the idea that they're having back and forth over email and talking about this book and using their characters. So
And I think that at first when we were kind of saying this, like we thought Donny Cates would weave his own shit in here in a like masturbatory way. And I don't think he did. Like
no.
I think that a Tomahawk made it into this comic book, which is a one-off comic book that Donny Cates did with a tattoo artist that did this like really interesting artwork.
Yeah. Was it like magazine sized? Am I remembering it right?
Yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And it's cool. Like
Yeah.
the style of it is really cool. And like that character made a reference and then there was a Virgin cover with a tomahawk on the cover.
Yep.
I thought that like the sword served its purpose.
Yep.
Was great. Payback's a little bit too long, stuck around, but still was fine.
Yeah.
And then like obviously different things like that appeared and didn't appear. So I mean, it was wonderful. Yeah, I mean, it's not over.
Right. But I mean, as far as like a first arc goes,
this season is over.
the season's over, and I'm colossally happy about it.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got in the dome. I'm glad we got a crazy panel of like when we kind of talked about the book, I thought within the pages of the first issue, I was going to see this crazy spread of like, oh my God, look at all these characters. And I didn't get that, right? But it's more earned having waited until the end of the arc, that when they finally get in the dome, it made it that much cooler that we've, been talking about this book for half a year.
Yeah.
And knowing that something big was coming in this one. I love the reveal that Ellipses is a comic book person that does like huge things for the story moving forward.
Right. I fear that this comic book is losing a little bit of steam and hype.
Mm-hmm.
Because like in the comic book shop today, we can talk about this on the main feed too.
Okay.
We should. But do you know what the number one comic like selling out everywhere was?
In comic shops today?
Yes, like by a landslide.
Did that Fortnite comic
Yes.
come out this week?
Yes. Yeah. It was the Fortnite Batman thing, right? And
I saw Dynamic Forces was selling it raw
$50
for $50.
Yeah, that's like the standard right now.
God.
I don't want to get into on this, but what I'm saying is that like 3, I felt like I wasn't almost gonna get, and I pre-ordered it.
Yeah.
6, I just didn't pre-order,
Uh-huh.
and I got every cover I needed.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and I just feel like it just goes to show you that like a 6 issue of anything
Mm.
is just hard to do, and that's why there's so many fucking first appearances.
Yeah.
In both the big 2 books, because they want you to like keep on buying
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think the story lacked anything. I don't think the hype of the crossover lacked anything. I just think that like things get in the way.
Yeah.
And so like I think that it was great for them to do 6. They can re-hype it up. They can do some crazier shit.
Yeah.
And stuff, and like keep people on the hype train. If not, it's still a great story, and I'm glad that we're following it.
Right. As a standalone individual, like when we look back on this in 10 years and people think of it as more of like a graphic novel or a trade that discusses the form and acknowledges characters, I think it'll stand on its own as like a really cool,
Totally.
great graphic novel that's maybe an all-timer.
Yes. I do think, though, that it is so much enhanced by knowing about independent comics and specifically Image in the last 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
That I don't know that it'll be like...
You're not going to put it up there with Preacher because anybody can pick up Preacher and enjoy that story.
On our Patreon, we did the Indie Comic Book Hall of Fame top 5, 10? Top 5.
Characters?
No, series of all time. Remember?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't think it cracks top 10 in 10 years.
No.
I don't think it gets into the realm of like Saga, Walking Dead, things like that.
No, I don't think so either.
Because its strength is for literally people like us and people that listen to this podcast.
Yeah, very niche.
Yeah. So that all of you that listen to this podcast, this is, if Greg were here, he would say, a love letter to you.
Yeah, right. Do you feel loved?
I feel loved. Yeah. I feel taken care of.
Yeah.
I think, I imagine we'll talk to Donnie at some point. It's inevitable.
Oh, get him on the show, you mean?
I think we need to.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and just say, like, we're not going to talk about all your other bullshit. We just want to straight cross over you.
Okay.
In some ways, I mean, maybe I'm blowing smoke out my ass, but I feel like we're the experts on crossover at this point.
We can't even name most of the characters.
It's a great point.
We just keep saying, like, the comic book shop guy.
The guy. Yeah, you're right. We should actually, like, learn their proper nouns. We're like the Simpson people that go to, like, the Simpson trivia and have only seen season 1 through 3.
Right, yeah.
No, I mean, I love this series, and it's like, it gets me excited to go into the comic book store.
Yeah.
Store to get.
Things you're looking forward to in subsequent runs of this?
Well, I mean, I love now that we haven't ended the main storyline.
Uh-huh.
Like, Ellie has to go somewhere.
Right.
And so I'm invested to see where Ellie goes.
Yep.
Her sidekick, I think his relationship with his father and all of the amalgam shit that he was doing, I think that story is going to go somewhere.
Yep.
And I mean, I think it's cool to just see what other crossovers happen. If they get a Big Two official appearance somewhere,
Yeah.
I will die happy. And it's not even that I'm like have such a hard on for the Big Two. I just want to have seen. I just love the like legal contract.
Yeah.
Thinking
They
about
reached an agreement somehow. on
yeah,
it.
that they got like some random ass bullshit character.
They weren't so in their own egos about how important and precious their characters are that they like let it happen.
Yeah, they were just like, fine, you can have this like
Yep.
throwaway, whatever.
Whoever does it first is my new favorite publisher.
Same. Let's commit to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's DC, my favorite publisher is DC.
Yep. Definitely. I'm in.
Chip Zdarsky books that you want to see people pop up from?
Like his Big Two that he's written stuff.
Not just anything Chip Zdarsky's worked on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you write sex criminals in here because they're not like really like iconically like, oh, that's a sex criminal
Yeah,
character,
right.
And then, I don't know. I liked White Trees.
Uh-huh.
But it's like I don't think that needs to.
Yeah, a lot of his books that are independent are really smaller stories.
Yeah, Zatara. Was it called Zatara or
Captara.
I can't even remember the name of the book, but I
Yeah.
loved that book.
That book was funny.
Yeah,
It was like a future sci-fi
like
comedy.
He-Man. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah. Any of his stuff would be great. So, but any of his like Big Two stuff that I don't think. Obviously, you don't own the Big Two stuff when you write for it, so he has no say.
He wrote Howard the Duck for a while when it came back.
Yeah.
If I could see Marvel being like, fine, use this character, it would probably be Howard the Duck.
Howard the Duck.
That's the one they're going to be most lenient with, I think.
And there's probably things like we talked about this too, how it was likely going to be Thor, because
Yeah, we did talk about that because no one can really own Thor.
Yeah.
So you could throw him in a comic and be like, fine,
it's Thor.
it's Thor.
Yeah. It's like
You can put Odin, you can put Loki, you can put all kinds of those characters in a comic.
I think you could put Valkyrie.
Yeah, right.
So they could do that, I
Yep.
guess. It'd be nice if it was just like, hey, there's Cap.
Yeah, right.
There's Hulk. There's Batman. Yeah, which I guess there's an allusion to Superman a little bit in this.
There
So,
is.
but there was that as well. And then it turned out to be Madman.
Yeah.
So didn't disappoint.
Not one bit. I enjoyed it. It was better than not disappointing to me.
Yes, it
It was great, I thought.
Yes, definitely in the A range.
Yes.
So I'm excited to just keep going with this. Keep on doing crosstalks.
It continues to surprise me that I feel like my expectations are so high each and every week that it won't be able to sustain itself. And the fact that it's still sustaining itself through 6 issues is like incredible.
I can't remember a comic book I was this excited to read 6 issues in. So, and it might be because we do this podcast, but
Yeah, right.
you know,
The time between them kills me.
I do need. Marvel is really good at that. That just tiny refresher. Because I'm not gonna
Here's
go.
what happened last time.
Yeah, I hate having to look at the back of the last book and just like reread it a little
Yeah.
bit. That's why trades are such a beautiful medium.
Mhm.
But this one was good because the cliffhanger you obviously remember.
Yeah, right.
So, the other thing too is like the stories aren't that complex. That like you're like it's not like reading an X-Men story. Where
Yeah,
like,
they're trying to get into a dome.
yeah.
Do they make it or not?
Right. Kill the main character. Should always do that.
Yep.
That's like 101 of the end of a series.
Mm-hmm.
Kill somebody, leave on a cliffhanger, move the story forward.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bravo. Thank you, Donnie.
Thank you, Donnie. Thank you, John.
Thank you, D.
D. Thanks to the million people that lent the characters, the toys as they call them, to play with.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you, listeners.
Yeah. Thank you. That's the most important part.
Mm-hmm.
Always thank you to the listeners. You're probably readers. Donnie should be thanking you as well. We'll
Yep.
thank you on his behalf.
Right.
Thanks for purchasing.
Are we continuing to do crosstalk
I
beyond the first arc?
hope so.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to.
All right.
Let the fans vote.
Deal struck.
Okay, good. Cool. All right, CROSSTALK.
Crosstalk.